Hello there, it's good to have you with us. You're watching the Press Preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines. Let's have a look at the front page of the Daily Mail. Their headline, 24 hours to save them. Unsurprisingly, that story is leading many of the front pages tomorrow. The Metro also leading with the last photo of the submersible before its journey to the wreck. The Sun interviews a man who says he was booked to travel on the missing vessel. Meanwhile, the Daily Star says the missing submersible is steered by a £42 video game controller. The Chancellor's summoned banks for mortgage talks but rules out aid to homeowners. That's on tomorrow's front page of the Financial Times. The Eye goes further, leading with a warning that the Tories face a UK mortgage time bomb. While The Guardian leads with mortgage time bomb, bailout calls split Tories. The COVID pandemic damaged a generation of young people. That's on the front of the Daily Telegraph. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you're watching us. And we're joined tonight by journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the Mail on Sunday's acting deputy political editor Claire Ellicott. Great to have you both with us. Thanks so much for joining us. Jenny, let's kick off with the front page of the Metro. Like many of tomorrow's papers, leading on the missing sub. Their headline, Titanic sub, last photo, and focusing very much on this race against time in terms of the amount of oxygen they're estimating the team have left.
Yes, and also the fact that more details are emerging about the 5 people believed to be inside this submersible. 3 Britons, 1 aged just 19. But 3 of them, there's a father and son, that's the 19-year-old is the son, 3 of them are thought to be very experienced deep-sea adventurers. This has shone a light on a very expensive kind of adventuring. It's sort of disaster tourism that may have turned into a disaster itself, or at least wreck tourism. They paid £200,000 a passenger. They've gone down or tried to go down 3,800 metres. That's as low as the Alps is high. Extraordinary people in terms of wealth, but also willingness to take on a really serious adventure, I guess. So those details have been emerging today, and also the fact that other people who have been on the Titan, this submarine, to go down and see the Titanic, have been talking about how they knew of the risks, or perhaps suspected there were great risks, and had to sign waivers going down. It is 48 hours since it lost contact. And we found out today from the US Coast Guard that there are around 40 hours of breathable air left inside there, which means that by sort of Thursday morning, our time, the air is going to run out. So it is a race against time, and it is a search and rescue mission. Both parts of that are incredibly difficult, searching an area as large as Wales and trying to rescue people that far deep down. So there is a kind of incredible symmetry about this. It's like a disaster movie of a famous historical disaster. Is there going to be another massive loss of life here? It's rare for things to go wrong on a submersible. So lots of questions are being asked in the papers. But for now, we just have no idea what's going on aboard the submarine.
Yeah, Claire, the Daily Mail also leading with this story tomorrow morning. I was saying to someone today, it really reminds me of the coverage of the young football team in Thailand who were trapped in that cave, and the whole world was rooting for them. But this time, it does seem to be far more challenging because there's just absolutely no idea where they are. And, of course, there's a huge expanse that they have to search.
I mean, this is truly the stuff of nightmares, this 5 people trapped in this tiny object. It's only 22 foot long, I think, and they are probably thousands of meters under the sea's surface. It's absolutely impossible to search the sea. They talk about the surface of the moon being better explored than some of the depths of the ocean. It absolutely is just an impossible task, and the Coast Guard and all of the other agencies involved are truly in a race against time. There are 40 hours of air, they estimate, left in this submarine. It's unimaginable what the people in there are going through. It's just, and for their families as well. It's the fact that, you know, diving is a dangerous endeavour. They've gone down, I think it's 13,000 feet under the sea. The Titanic wreck is located. They were in really difficult weather conditions before they did the dive. And you know, we just don't know where they are. The US Coast Guard is saying they've had no luck so far. They've searched thousands and thousands of feet of the ocean with planes, with boats, and also I think they've got underwater drones looking for these people. But it is a really, really difficult task, and it is a real race against time. And it must be just unimaginable what their families are going through at the moment. It truly is, you know, a real reckoning.
Absolutely. I was speaking to one of the experts we've been interviewing earlier, and I said, you know, it's a needle in a haystack situation. And he said it would be easier to find a needle in a haystack. It really doesn't bear thinking about. But let's hold our breath. There's still time and there's still hope. Let's move on to one of the other main stories leading some of the papers tomorrow, Jenny. The front page of the Financial Times very much focusing on this concern over people's mortgages. One Tory MP calling it a mortgage bomb about to go off.
Yeah, a mortgage time bomb about to go off. That was Jake Berry of one of the Northern research group Red Wall Seats. Martin Lewis, the big money-saving expert, has also used this phrase, mortgage time bomb about to go off. It is really worrying for people, and there are millions of people, I'm one of them, who are facing the end of their mortgage deals and seeing a huge jump in interest rates. Tomorrow, we are going to see the latest set of inflation figures, and inflation is expected to be down, but not very much, not by very much. We have still the most stubborn inflation and the highest level of inflation of all the G7 countries. And Jeremy Hunt says he cannot provide assistance to people who have mortgages because that would make inflation worse. But he's under pressure from his fellow MPs to do so. I mean, this kind of thing is a real vote winner, or rather it affects people at the ballot box, and not just people who have mortgages. Renters are facing an enormous squeeze. Rents are going up. Apparently, more renters are paying a greater proportion of their wage on rent than they have done for many years, simply because mortgage rates are so high, and interest rates are, of course, expected to go up yet again this year to the highest levels since 2008. So it is frightening times for a lot of people. And what's really worrying is that things don't seem to be getting better. Jeremy Hunt has said that he's going to talk to banks, and banks are going to help lenders they're going to help people with mortgages on a case-by-case basis, help people out if they can't pay. But it's not so much a question of not being able to pay. There are a lot of people who will just about manage to pay, but they are not going to be able to save any money, spend any money. And as we know, interest rates are going up, and they're going up on mortgages, but we're not feeling them so much on our savings. So bleak times ahead, I would say.
Yeah, it is rather bleak. It's hard to dress this up, isn't it, Claire? At the front page of The Guardian also leading with this line, the mortgage time bomb. And we could, of course, see interest rates go up again on Thursday. And I found it quite interesting to read earlier that 400,000 people are going to see their current mortgage deals end between July and September.
Yes, and this is a real worry for the Tories. We're going into an election next year. So Jeremy Hunt is under real pressure to do something as the Chancellor. But the facts are that if you start pumping money into the system, you will, in theory, trigger more inflation, which is one of the reasons why costs are so high at the moment anyway. So they're in a really difficult bind, and they're coming under real pressure from a lot of their MPs. Jake Berry, as we just mentioned, he's from a Red Wall seat in the Northern Research Group of Tory MPs. But in actual fact, I think some of the blue wall, some of the Tories' kind of more traditional supporters down south are going to be really, really hard hit by this. And the rates are going up a lot. You know, these are real noticeable differences for most homeowners. And, it's not just affecting people at the lower end of the scale, it's affecting people in the middle classes who may find that their mortgage is beyond what they can afford to pay. And the spectre of negative equity and, people having to default on their loans is a real worry. So this is, I think, why Jeremy Hunt has called in the banks, I think on Friday, to speak to them about what possibly they can do. But the realities are that there aren't many levers at his control or even at the bank's control, because this problem is ingrained. We've got sluggish growth. There's high levels of inflation. They're persistent. They don't seem to be coming down, despite this being one of Rishi Sunak's real priorities. And the facts are that these costs are being passed on to homeowners, which are, the key group of voters that the Tories need to keep happy. And it's really looking perilous for the year ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Jenny, it's so worrying for so many people who are already struggling to make ends meet. And as Claire was saying there, Jeremy Hunt is meeting with lenders on Friday, but the government has already said that they're not going to intervene financially.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much that lenders can do. As I said before, they can help with people who are in desperate circumstances by helping them out without affecting their credit rating. But there's nothing really they can do. And, Claire mentions a general election coming up in 2024. There are many by-elections coming up within a few months. And in fact, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, made the point today, quite clever, really. She did some number crunching, found out that 10,100 households in Boris Johnson's old seat of Uxbridge are going to be facing average mortgage costs that are an extra £2,700 a year. People think about this stuff because obviously the Labour Party are spinning this as being a direct consequence of Liz Truss's mini budget. Of course, the Conservatives would like to say that it's a consequence of the war in Ukraine, economic factors beyond their control. But I think most people feel that this is an avoidable crisis, that this comes out of mistakes that the Conservatives have made, and they have lost their reputation for financial competence. Jeremy Hunt is trying to claw that back. But this is something that they need to address, and not just before the next general election. They need to address it now before all of these by-elections.
Claire, let's just squeeze in another story before the break. Front page of the Financial Times is also covering this story of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, who's been charged with federal crimes. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because this is a story that's been followed very closely for a long time now in the US, but hasn't really cut through here in the UK in the same way.
Yes, I mean, Hunter Biden has been a way of attacking Joe Biden since he became the president. He's the sort of weak link in the president's camp. We've all seen those photos of him. He's in the past had addictions. He's, admitted to all sorts of things. And we've now seen these new charges. And the facts are that he is the convenient stick to beat Joe Biden with. And, the president's kind of enemies in the Republican camp will be making as much as they can of this. But this is a member of Joe Biden's family. There's not really, there's not much he can do about it. It's just a sort of ongoing worry for the president. But it remains to be seen what will happen as a result of this. But it does seem like everyone in the US in the future presidential elections does seem rather embroiled in a series of court cases at the moment. And it'll be very interesting in the run up to the election what happens there.
Yeah, it's contagious, isn't it? And certainly, Jenny, I mean, it was to be expected. Donald Trump came out speaking very critically, calling this a mere traffic ticket for Hunter Biden today. But some comparing his situation with the legal challenges facing Donald Trump, saying he should also just accept some charges and avoid going to trial.
Well, this massively plays into Donald Trump's hands, because he can say that the Department of Justice is on Biden's side and is letting his son off with a rap on the knuckles. Hunter Biden is a private individual, and Donald Trump, he faced these federal charges for things that he directly had done. But nonetheless, this very much plays into how Donald Trump wants to spin things. He has been going on about Hunter Biden and his laptop for many, many years. Hunter Biden has had troubles for many years too, troubles with addiction. He's been struggling for a very long time, but he is not running to be president like Donald Trump is, or his dad is running for re-election. What's significant about this is the narrative that allows Donald Trump to spin about a corrupt system designed to be unfair to him, and this is something that will play really well, I think, with Donald Trump supporters.
OK, Jenny, Claire, we'll give you a bit of a breather. See you in just a moment. Thank you both so much. Do stay with us. We'll have more of our press preview next, including this on the front of the Telegraph, their headline, "Lockdown damaged a generation, says ex-CMO." That's the former chief medical officer. We'll be speaking about that after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. It's good to have you with us. And with me this evening is Jenny Kleeman and Claire Ellicott, kicking off again on some of the front pages and the stories in tomorrow's newspapers. Claire, let's speak about what's on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, if I may. The COVID inquiry, a really emotional testimony today from the former chief medical officer describing lockdown as damaging a generation.
Yeah, so this is Sally Davies, the former chief medical officer. She's been giving evidence to the COVID inquiry. And what she said is that lockdown was really damaging for a generation of children and for everyone else that was involved as well. Now, we all know how how difficult it was for the country, for the government to put the country into lockdown, and the real kind of consequences of this are only really being seen now. You have so many children who miss so much schooling, and people at university who miss schooling, people at work who just didn't get, the opportunities they should have done, and miss the chances to socialise with their colleagues and to have a well-rounded life. It's been a really, really difficult time for so many people, and the real, the former chief medical officer really emphasised that. The facts are that lockdown wasn't very good for the country, and especially not children at school who weren't able to go to lessons. We've seen, the government's tried to put in place some catch-up lessons, but it just hasn't had the effect that it should have done, and they've not been able to do the same, to just have the same opportunities they would have done, and it's really been difficult for a whole generation of people. And the facts are that the COVID is over now, but we are still seeing the lasting effects of many of those decisions that were made at the time.
Jenny, I saw you shaking your head at moments there. I'll let you jump in with whatever you want to say.
Yes, of course, no doubt COVID was very damaging, and it was perhaps most damaging for young people who are least at risk of COVID. But I think Sally Davies was not saying that lockdown shouldn't have happened, because at the time we didn't have a vaccine and we didn't have any alternatives. And I think the Daily Telegraph is very anti-lockdown, has certainly shown itself to be so over the past few months, and so with its disclosure of lots of things to do with Matt Hancock's WhatsApps, it has an agenda. I'm a mother myself. I saw my children denied so many important years of their lives at school. But what was the alternative? That we let a lot of people die. I mean, one of the things that Dame Sally said today was that nobody thought about lockdowns, but that's because they were unthinkable at the time. I mean, nobody ever considered that in a democratic country that the state could order people to stay at home. But at the time, we did not know about COVID. We did not know about the risk. We didn't know who was at risk, and it was the only option that we had. So it's incredibly sad that people have been so badly affected by lockdown. And yes, a generation has been harmed. But what was the alternative? That we simply allowed hundreds of thousands of people to die? That's even more unthinkable, I would say.
And Claire, just a final thought from you. It was interesting, we heard from George Osborne as well, who defended austerity today. Claire, can you hear me okay?
Sorry, yes. So George Osborne, yes, the former Chancellor, he put in place a number of policies that meant that some of the services that were available to people didn't get the same sort of funding that they had done in the past. He's been blamed, obviously, for not being prepared for the pandemic as a result of that. He's obviously defended himself and said that, this wasn't to blame. But some members of the Conservative government have in the past said that, there wasn't the things in place to enable us to cope with this pandemic in the same way that we should have done. And we saw there was a lack of PPE, there was a lack of sort of integral planning, which meant that it was really difficult to put those supply chains in place when we needed them. And it was a real struggle to sort of get the country through this. And we saw time and again that there were contracts handed out to people who weren't deserving of them. There was so much taxpayers' money wasted, and it was a real error on the part of some of those who'd planned it in making sure that the country had what it needed.
OK, Claire, Jenny, thanks so much. We'll see you again next hour.